Okay, everybody, what's up? We're back. And today we're going to do main menu. So I'm going to do a whole menu system. We're going to do main menu. We're going to do a pause menu. We're going to do options menu. And after this, we're going to do a save system. So in order to save it, we need a menu to load and start our game. And we're going to need a pause menu to be able to save our game from. So we're going to knock those out first here. First thing I'm going to do is go in and we're going to make a new level. I'm going to go to file at the top and I'm going to do new level. So I'm just going to go to empty level because this is all we're going to need and we're going to create it. And we're going to make a widget now. And I did go ahead and just download an image already that I'm just going to use. This is just a screenshot from my game. And I'm just going to use that as an example here. So we're going to make a user interface widget blueprint and user widget. And I'm just going to call that WBP menu. And now before I forget, the first thing I want to do is to go into my level and I'm going to open up the level blueprint. And I'm going to just use the begin play here. And then on begin play, all I'm going to do is create widget. And I'm going to look for that widget that I just made. So if I just type in WBP, all my widgets come up. I'm just going to look for that menu widget I just made. And then all I'm going to do is drag off the return and add to viewport. So that will add this widget to our screen now. So that's all we're going to do here. We're going to save it. And then when we save it, it's going to ask us to save the level now. So now we're saving our new level. So it's asking us for a name. So I'm just going to call this menu underscore map and click save. So now we have our new level saved. And we should actually be done in this level blueprint. So I'm just going to close that. And I'm going to open up that widget that we just made. So the WBP menu. Now, again, you can design this however you want to. What I'm going to do is do a canvas panel first, and the canvas panel is going to give me a widget that's going to be the size of my screen, which means we can put stuff wherever we want to in here. So the first thing I'm going to do on that canvas panel is put an image down. So I'm going to drag that image on top of the canvas panel, and you can see it just comes in as this little square up top here. So I'm going to click on that image, and I'm going to make it 1920 by 1080. And you can see that kind of blows it up to the size of our screen. So now I can come over here to the brush settings, and we have image right here. So I'm just going to open up my content drawer, select my image that I picked, and I'm just going to hit the little arrow over here, and that's going to load it in. So now we have our image loaded in here. And then I'm going to add text. And I'm just going to pick the regular normal text here. And I'm going to drop that on the canvas panel. And then I'm going to actually drag and drop another one on as well. So we're going to have two texts in there. And the first text, I'm going to just rename to name. And then while I'm here, I'm just going to rename the second text. I'm going to say VER, version. Okay, and then it gives us our text up top here. So they're stacked on top of each other right now. So I'm just going to drag them out so we can get them here. Okay, so I'm going to select the name and we're going to put this kind of in the middle here. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. You can drag this box. You can see how if I drag this box, the size X and Y right here is moving. So if you want specific sizes, you can set them. I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. So I'm just going to drag that out a little bit. I want to make the text bigger. So under font, we have size right here. And then we can put the name of our game in here. So again, I'm just going to use my game Endure, and we'll just throw that in, kind of size that to what we want. And then now we can snap this to the center if we want with the anchor. So if I go into anchor, if I hold shift and control, I'm going to snap it to this top center here. So it's going to snap right there. And then I can use the position Y to move it along this Y axis now. So I'm just going to scrub that and kind of drag it down a little bit. And we'll just go something like that. And if we don't want it snapped to the center, that's fine. We could move it off to the left a little bit too. Kind of do whatever you want here. Then we have our color and opacity. So we can change the color of this to whatever we want. Might just do some kind of a little blue color. Set your opacity. You have outline settings here too. So if you want, you can throw outline in, change the color of that however you want. I'm just going to do this real basic here. You can even make your text in Photoshop or something like that, and then bring the image in. If you know how to use Photoshop or something like that, you can make something really cool and then bring that in here. And then I'm going to grab the other text we made, the version. I'm just going to leave that white, and I'm going to leave that about that same size here. And up in the text field, I'm going to just say, we're going to do version dot, and this will be for our game version. So I'm just going to put something in here for now. We'll do 0. 20.50. Okay, and then that can be our little version number here. So whenever we make changes and we come in, we can update this. That way, when our game's packaged, we'll know what version we have, if it's the latest version or not. So we're just going to leave that down there for now. Then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to look for a vertical box. And I'm going to throw the vertical box on the canvas panel. And again, that just throws it on the top here. So this is going to be our little button box where our buttons are going to be. And then inside that vertical box, I'm going to put a button. So I'm going to look for button. Going to drag and drop that inside the vertical box. And then I'm going to go back and look for another text. And we're going to drag a text on top of the button this time. Before I add more buttons, I'm just going to kind of customize this a little bit. And then I can just copy the button and paste it in there. So I'm going to select the button we made. And we have a bunch of different options we can do here. I'm just going to do a couple things. Under style, we have normal, hovered, pressed. So if you open these up, you have the same options in here for each one, normal, hovered, and pressed. And this is just going to be how you want it to look in its normal state, hovered state, and pressed state. Here we can use images. So you can go and make a custom image for your button if you don't just want like a rectangle. We can do whatever we want to do here. So you can import your image for your button here if that's what you want to do. And we'll just look for maybe kind of like a bluish color. And I might just set that to be a little darker. I am going to copy this code. So I'm going to highlight that, Control C, and we're just going to copy that. And maybe we'll just do something like 3. And I'll leave that white. And then we have our radius. So we can do a half height radius, which will make this kind of like a roundish button here. Or if you do fixed, you can use these numbers to kind of play around and make it kind of however you want as far as like the corner chamfering goes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do 25 on these two positions here. And then I'll just kind of give me like an opposite corner type thing here. So we have a little outline to it. So now I'm going to go into the hovered and I'm going to pretty much do the same thing. So I'm going to open up the tint. And we copied our code from the normal. So I'm going to paste that code in here, which will give me the same color. And then I'm going to bring it up. And this is going to be for my highlight. So you can see that this is going to be our normal color. Then when we highlight it, it's going to highlight to this color. And I'm going to try and make sure that I get the right settings on here. You can change your button completely on hovered. So if you want to hover over this and have this change into a completely different looking button, you can do that. So I'm going to open up my outline settings. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So hovered, I'm going to do an outline width of 3, and I'm going to do the same 25, 25 here. Again, just to make this hovered look the same as normal, I just want to change the tint. And I'm going to do the same thing for press too. So I'm going to come in here, paste in my code. And for press, I'm going to make it darker. So I'm going to come way down to something like that. Open up the outline settings, give it a width of 3. Put in 25 here, 25 here. So now I have my normal, hovered, and press set up. I'm not going to be using disabled here. We have some sounds that we can do too. So we have a hovered sound. So if I go in here, I'm just going to use that. So we're going to click that. That's going to be the hovered sound. And for a pressed sound, you probably want to go and get your own custom sounds. I'm just using what's in here right now. So we just have this click on button sound here. I'm just going to use that. So now that will give us sounds for when we're hovering, when we're pressed. And then I'm going to go to the text now for this button. There is one change that I want to do down here though. So if we scroll down, you'll see that our text is set to visible. So what I want to do is set it to non-hit testable, because that text can get in the way of us pressing the button. So if we set it to non-hit testable, that means that our mouse won't be able to interact with that text. We only want to interact with the button. I'm going to come over here and select the button, and I'm just going to Control C and then come up to our vertical box and paste it with Control V. And I'm going to paste in maybe 2 more. So we're going to have 4 buttons in here. Now I'm going to come up to this first text block here, and I'm just going to name this Start New maybe, or Start Game, whatever you want to put here. I'm going to do Start New because, again, I am going to do a save system after this. So the next button I'm going to make is going to be a continue button, and this will be for loading. And we're not going to handle this today. This will be for the future when we do our save and load system, but we're going to put it in here and get it ready. And then the next text block we're going to do is going to be for our options. And then our last one is going to be for quitting. So we're going to set those up. Now, after we name the text, I'm going to come in here and name the buttons too, because we're going to need access to the buttons in the graph. So I'm just going to rename the buttons to the same thing that I have my text named at, so I know what the button is when I'm in the graph. Okay, so I have all my buttons named the same as my text blocks here. So now I want to play around with this layout here, because right now the buttons don't have any space in between them. They're all just kind of squished up here. So what I'm going to do is just select my buttons. So I'm going to control select the 4 buttons, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit fill now. And fill is going to fill them into the size of this vertical box we're using. So now I can select that vertical box and just grab a corner of it. Let me zoom out a little. So if we grab the corner of that vertical box now, you can see that we can now move that and change the size of those buttons to whatever we want to. And I want to put some padding in here. I want spacing in between the buttons. So we're going to select those buttons again, hold control and just click all 4 of the buttons. And then for me, I'm going to go in top and bottom and just add a little padding. So I'm going to try 10 and see what that looks like. So I'll put 10 in the top, 10 in the bottom, and you can see that gives me a little space. Go back to the vertical box and maybe change that a little bit. So now I'm going to make that text a little bit bigger in there. I'm kind of happy with how the button layout is. So now I'm going to select the text here. I'm going to select all 4. So you can edit multiple layers at once. So that's why I'm selecting all 4 text. And I'm going to come to the size here and let's try 30 or maybe 40. So I'll do that. So I just bumped the text up to 40 here. We can set our color to the text to whatever we want. We can set our outline. So I might just give this maybe like a black outline. So maybe something like that. So we have our button set up pretty decent. We can always come in here and move stuff. So if we wanted to move our main game name, we can always come in here and kind of move that wherever we want, change the size, do whatever we want to do with it. But for now, I think this is going to be pretty good set up here. So I'm going to compile, save that, and then we're going to go into the graph now. And I'm going to just use the on construct here. When this blueprint fires up, we're going to want to see our mouse and we're going to want to put it into a UI mode. So I'm going to get player controller, and then I'm going to drag off that, and I'm going to do set show mouse cursor, because otherwise we won't have a mouse to be able to move around. So we're going to make sure that that's checked. And then coming off our player controller as well, we're going to drag off and do set input mode, and we want UI only. So set input mode UI only. We're going to connect that up. And the in widget to focus, I'm just going to drag off and do self. So it's going to know that we want to focus on this widget. And one thing I forgot to do is we're going to jump back to the graph real quick. The text for our version, I'm going to come up here and check is variable. Okay, so the text block that we made for version, we're going to make is variable, and then we're going to go back to the graph, and now we should see that here. So I'm going to drag that version out, and I'm also going to make a variable for this. So I'm going to call this version, and I'm going to make this a string, and I'm just going to drag that out too. So now coming off this version variable, I'm going to just do a append. And then coming off the version component we made, our text component, I'm going to drag off and do set text. And we're going to pick the one at the bottom that says text. Set text, text. And we're going to plug that in. And then coming from our append, I'm going to plug that into the in text, and that's going to convert it to a string for me. And then we'll just clean that up a little bit. Now this variable is going into the A. I'm just going to switch that and put that into the B. And then in the A, I'm just going to do version dot, and I'm going to put a space after it. And then I'm going to compile, save that, go into this variable, and now we can put our version, whatever version number we want in here. So I'm just going to make up something and do 0.20.50, and that will be our version for now. Now we're going to find our start button in this variables tab. So I'm going to click that start button, and then we're going to have an on-clicked event, and that's going to give me the on-clicked event here. And I'm also going to need the quit. So I'm going to go to quit. We're going to add on-clicked event for that too. So I'm just going to copy this player controller, and we can copy that show mouse cursor too. Just paste that in here. And now we want to uncheck show mouse cursor. And then we're going to drag off our player controller, and we're going to set input mode. And this time we're going to do game only. Plug that in. And then after we do that, we're going to open our level. So we're going to open level by name. Now this name has to be specific. So I'm going to go into where my map is. And this is going to be the first person map. That's just the default name of the map here. So I'm going to open up that text, copy it, and then I'm going to paste that in to our open level. So now when we click start, it's going to hide our mouse cursor, set us to game mode, and open our level. And then if we click quit, all we're going to do here is drag off and quit game. And we're going to leave that set up just the way it is. So our main menu should be pretty much good here. I'm going to do the pause menu next, and then we're going to do options. But this should be set up and working. So let's try this out. So we're going to save everything, make sure everything is saved down here too. And now I'm in my new level we made. So everything is just black in here. So if I hit play, you can see we have our menu that popped up. We have our text, we have our version, and we have our buttons. And we hover over them, we get our noise. And you can see they're highlighting when I hover them. And then nothing is on continue or options right now. So if I click that, you can see how we get that darker color we want, and we get the sound. And then if we were to click start new, it's going to throw me into the game now. Okay, and then if we exit out, hit play, we're back in the menu. If we hit quit, that's going to jump us out of the menu. Now there is one quick thing I want to do though. I have a little sound that's playing when I click start and quit, but as you can see, it kind of gets cut off because we get thrown into the level so quick. So if I click start, you can see how it doesn't really play that audio. What I'm going to do is just put a small delay in here. So before I open up this level, I'm just going to drag off and just do a small delay. We'll just do like maybe 1 second. And I'm going to do the same thing on quit. So I'm going to copy that delay, paste it in here, and then that should give us a little delay before it's going to do something. So we'll try that out. So now we're in our menu. If I go to start, you can see that gives me that little delay and then throws me in the level. And we're good. We have our mouse cursor back. Now if we go to quit, gives us that little delay and then it kicks us out of the menu. So now if we want to change our version number, there's a couple different ways we can do that. We can change it in this variable if that's how you want to set it up. We could click that variable and then come down here and we can change our version number. So every time we make an update, we can change the numbers and then save it and it will update. So if I wanted to change that from 0.50 to 0.67, all we have to do is just kind of save it there and then we jump into our menu and we got 0.67 now. What I like doing is just making that variable instance editable and exposed on spawn. And then what that's going to do is if we come to our level, we can go into our level blueprint now where we're creating the widget. And if I refresh this, you can see we have our version number right there now. So this is kind of how I like handling it. You can do whatever you feel like you want to do. You might not even want the version number. That's fine. Now, the one last thing we're going to do real quick is we're going to go to our project settings and we're going to open up maps and modes right here in the top. Default maps. So you can see here we have editor startup map and we have game default map. So when we start the editor, it's going to use our first person map to start. Every time you press play in the editor, you don't want it to go to a menu and then loading screen and all this other stuff. But the game default map is going to be when the game is packaged. What's the first level that loads? So I'm going to come in here and look for the main menu that we made. So now once we package the game out and get a real version of the game that we can put on the PC and play it, the default map that it's going to load to is going to be our menu map. But if I was to open up the first person map and hit play from here, it's going to jump me into the game. Okay, so if you did want to see your menu or test it out, you can just come up here, open level, go to your menu map, and now you're in your menu. So now if you hit play from here, you can get your menu. Okay, so I think we got the basics of a working menu here. So thanks for watching and see you next time.